Lynda Carter. Her name feels like a doorway to another time. A woman who once stood in front of the world wearing strength like armor while carrying her own private uncertainties beneath the surface. Before she ever spun into Wonder Woman, she was just a young girl from Arizona, learning how to use her voice, her talent, and her courage to step into a world that did not make entry easy. But how did that girl, shaped by music and quiet determination, become the face of a generation's hope? When she finally stepped into the costume that would define an era, she became more than a television character. She became a symbol, brilliant, poised, endlessly admired. Yet behind that golden lasso was a woman navigating pressures she never asked for, expectations she never anticipated, and a spotlight that illuminated only part of her truth. What did fame demand from her that the audience never saw? And when Wonder Woman faded from the screen, she was left with a question every icon eventually faces: who am I when the world stops watching? Her journey through reinvention, heartbreak, healing, and quiet triumphs reveals the human story behind the legend. Lynda Carter's story begins in Phoenix, Arizona in 1951, long before the world would ever call her a hero. She was born into a family that blended cultures, warmth, and a quiet resilience. Her mother's Mexican-American heritage shaped the rhythms of her childhood, weaving identity into the everyday moments that would later anchor her. In those early years, Lynda was not yet the poised figure audiences would come to adore. She was a shy girl searching for the thing that made her feel whole. And she found it, first in music. Singing came to her naturally, a kind of instinct she never had to force. It became the place where she felt free, long before cameras and critics ever entered her life. She spent her teen years chasing melodies instead of popularity, leaning toward the comfort of sound rather than the noise of social circles. By 16, she was already performing publicly, her voice carrying a softness that hinted at the depth she would one day show the world. Music pulled her into touring bands, letting her step out of the small corners of her childhood and into the unpredictable world of performance. Those early gigs were not glamorous. They were smoky bars, long drives, and learning to stand tall even when she felt unsure. But they taught her how to hold an audience. They taught her how to step into herself. Then came 1972, the year everything shifted. Encouraged by friends, she entered the Miss World USA pageant, not to chase fame, but to push herself towards something bigger. She won. Overnight, the young singer from Arizona found herself representing the United States on a global stage at the Miss World competition. It was intimidating. It was overwhelming. But it was also the moment she realized that the world was larger than she had ever imagined, and that she belonged in it. Her beauty caught attention, but it was her presence, her humility, and her quiet strength that made people remember her. The pageant opened a new door, one she hadn't dared to dream about: acting. She moved to Los Angeles with nothing but her determination and a belief that she could build something real. Those early years were not easy. She faced rejection, long stretches between auditions, and the kind of self-doubt that creeps in when the world feels too big. But every setback sharpened her focus. Every disappointment pushed her to try again. She took acting classes, accepted small roles, and held on to the hope that something meaningful was coming. Television became her entry point. She appeared in guest roles on several series throughout the early 70s, learning how to navigate the pressure of studios and the relentless speed of Hollywood. She understood that she was still untested, still considered a newcomer, but she kept showing up. She kept trying, and behind every attempt was the same quiet force that shaped her childhood, the belief that life gives you chances only if you're willing to step toward them. What makes this chapter of Lynda's life so intimate is not the glamour but the vulnerability. She was a young woman standing between who she was and who she hoped to become, carrying the uncertainty that comes with ambition. Fame was not yet waiting for her. Recognition was still distant, but she had already built the foundation: identity shaped by culture, courage shaped by music, discipline shaped by years of saying yes to the unknown. And then, almost without warning, the call came. An audition for a role unlike anything she had ever imagined, one that would not only change her life but redefine what female strength looked like on American television. The girl from Arizona was about to step into a costume that would make her unforgettable. But what would it cost her to become Wonder Woman? When Lynda Carter walked into the audition room in the mid-70s, she had no way of knowing that her life was about to collide with a role that would define an era. The producers were searching for someone who could embody strength without losing softness, confidence without losing kindness. Lynda, with her quiet poise and grounded presence, carried all of it naturally. In 1975, she was officially cast as Diana Prince and Wonder Woman in the ABC series, a decision that would turn her into one of the most recognizable faces on American television. Stepping into the costume was more than a transformation. It became a responsibility. Lynda trained for the physical demands of the role, learning stunts, refining movements, and shaping her body to portray a character built on precision and athletic grace. The show required speed, agility, and endurance, and she met those expectations with discipline. She performed many of her own stunts, pushing herself through long days under hot lights and the constant pressure to capture the comic book heroine with authenticity. Her work ethic became one of the show's anchors, setting a tone for the production that stretched across all 3 seasons. The series debuted during a time when female-led action shows were rare. The impact was immediate. Audiences, especially young girls, saw in her a hero who looked strong, capable, and compassionate. She delivered the character with a sincerity that made Wonder Woman more than entertainment. She made her a symbol. For many viewers, Lynda represented possibility at a time when television rarely offered women that kind of visibility. Her presence mattered, and it mattered deeply. As the show grew in popularity, so did the demands placed on her. Fame arrived quickly. Interviews, magazine covers, photo shoots, and non-stop attention became part of her daily reality. She handled the spotlight with grace, yet the weight of being a cultural icon was heavier than most people realized. Being Wonder Woman meant embodying perfection in the public eye, an impossible standard for any human being. Still, Lynda carried that expectation with a gentleness that made her feel accessible, even as she became larger than life. During the show's run, she received recognition for her work, including awards that celebrated her influence and popularity. But beyond the trophies and headlines was a quieter truth. She understood that girls were watching her. She knew she was portraying a character who represented empowerment at a time when women were fighting for visibility in multiple arenas. That awareness shaped the way she approached each scene. She wanted the character to feel real, grounded, and emotionally true. The production itself evolved over the years, moving from ABC to CBS and shifting storylines along the way. Through every change, Lynda remained the heart of the series. She brought both the intelligence of Diana Prince and the courage of Wonder Woman to life with a balance few actors could achieve. It was her interpretation, warm, strong, and deeply human, that kept audiences committed. But behind the applause and the weekly episodes, there was a more intimate challenge unfolding. The pace of filming, the public attention, and the cultural expectations carried a cost. She was grateful, but she was also learning what it meant for a role to take up so much space in her life. The costume, the stunts, the long hours, the image, it became a defining chapter, one that demanded everything she had to give. By the time the show ended in 1979, Lynda Carter had become inseparable from the character she portrayed. The world saw her as Wonder Woman, but she was about to begin a new journey, one where she would have to discover who she was beyond the golden lasso, and what life looked like when the cameras finally stopped. When the final episode of Wonder Woman aired in 1979, Lynda Carter found herself standing at a crossroads that many television icons eventually face. The world still saw her in the red, blue, and gold costume, but she knew she had to build a life beyond it. The end of the series did not silence her voice. It returned her to the dreams she had carried long before Hollywood, long before fame, long before anyone knew her name. Music was the first place she turned. Throughout the late 70s and into the 80s, she released several albums, stepping back into the path that had once shaped her youth. Singing was not a diversion. It was a return to herself. She performed in Las Vegas, on concert stages, and in intimate venues where the applause felt different, less about a character, and more about the woman behind it. Music allowed her to express emotions that could not fit into the frame of a superhero. It became a space where she could breathe. Acting remained part of her life too, though in a new way. She accepted roles in television films and guest appearances throughout the 80s and 90s, choosing parts that let her explore different sides of her craft. These roles did not carry the weight of global attention, but they carried something more personal, the chance to evolve. She was no longer trying to escape Wonder Woman, nor was she trying to replicate her. She was building a quieter, steadier identity as a working artist. In 1984, she married Washington attorney Robert Altman. Their life together offered her something she had rarely known during her years of fame: steadiness. The entertainment world had taught her how to navigate unpredictability, but marriage grounded her in something stable. They built a home filled with music, warmth, and the everyday rhythms that fame often disrupts. Together they had 2 children, giving her a role she cherished deeply: being a mother. Parenthood reshaped her priorities, guiding her toward work that allowed her to be present, not just visible. Yet even with love, career, and a renewed sense of purpose, Lynda faced a personal battle that she would later speak about openly. In the mid-2000s, she acknowledged her struggle with alcoholism and shared her experience with seeking recovery. She spoke about it candidly because she believed honesty could help someone else feel less alone. Her decision to seek treatment was not a fall from grace. It was an act of courage. It revealed the human side of a woman the world had once seen only through the lens of perfection. Recovery became a turning point, allowing her to reclaim parts of herself she had long set aside. As her life moved forward, she continued to engage with work that reflected her values. She supported charitable causes and used her platform to advocate for issues that mattered to her. Her philanthropic efforts were not gestures. They were commitments. She gave her time, her voice, and her presence to organizations working in health, empowerment, and community support. The years after Wonder Woman did not fade into obscurity. They unfolded into chapters of reinvention, healing, artistic growth, and deep emotional truth. She no longer needed the spotlight to define her place in the world. She found meaning in concerts, in film roles, in motherhood, in advocacy, and in the quiet strength of rebuilding herself again and again. By the time she reached the next phase of her life, Lynda Carter had already proven that her story did not end with a costume. It continued in the moments when no one was watching, moments that revealed who she truly was. But as she stepped into new roles in her later career, another transformation was about to begin. As Lynda Carter moved into the later chapters of her career, she stepped into them with the same quiet determination that had guided her since childhood. She no longer needed to prove anything, not to Hollywood, not to audiences, and not to the legacy of Wonder Woman. Instead, she focused on work that felt meaningful, personal, and aligned with the woman she had become. And in doing so, she discovered new ways to leave her mark. Her voice, once nurtured in small clubs and smoky rooms, found a new home in an unexpected medium: video games. She began lending her voice to characters in the Elder Scrolls franchise, including roles in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. For a generation that had not grown up watching her spin into a superhero, she became known through sound, mysterious, commanding, and unmistakably hers. This work extended her presence into an entirely new creative world, one where storytelling was interactive and deeply immersive. It was another form of performance, another way to connect. Television welcomed her back too, not as an icon from the past, but as a woman who still carried depth and presence. In the 2010s, she joined the cast of Supergirl in a recurring role, portraying the President. It was a fitting place for her, a show built on heroism, compassion, and courage. Her appearance was not nostalgic, it was purposeful. She understood the emotional resonance she held, and she used it with intention. Her presence reminded viewers of the lineage of female heroes on television, a lineage she helped pioneer. Music remained a steady thread through all of this. She continued touring into the 2010s and the 2020s, performing concerts that blended storytelling with song. Audiences who once watched her fight villains on Saturday nights now sat in dimly lit rooms, listening to her voice carry the weight of experience and the comfort of truth. Singing allowed her to remain close to her earliest passion, a reminder that before she was Wonder Woman, she was a girl who simply loved melody. Her concerts were not elaborate productions, they were intimate conversations set to music. Recognition followed her throughout these years, not for nostalgia, but for the breadth of her contributions. Cultural institutions honored her for shaping entertainment, for redefining female representation on television, and for continuing to create work with heart and intention. She became a symbol not only of heroism but of endurance, an artist who never stopped growing. Her film appearances reflected that same spirit. She stepped into new roles with ease, including a cameo in a modern superhero film that introduced her to yet another generation. The moment felt full circle. Decades after she first donned the costume, she returned not as the main hero but as a quiet reminder of where it all began. It was a bridge between eras, carried by a woman who had lived both sides of the story. Beyond her work, Lynda devoted herself to advocacy. She used her platform to raise awareness for breast cancer, supporting research and education. Her efforts were rooted in compassion, shaped by personal connections, and a deep belief in helping others. Women looked to her not only as an actress, but as someone who showed up consistently and sincerely. In 2021, she experienced one of the greatest losses of her life when her husband, Robert Altman, passed away. Her public tributes reflected profound love and profound grief. She spoke with honesty about their life together, honoring him with tenderness and gratitude. It reminded the world that behind every chapter of her career, there was a woman who loved deeply, who stood by her family, and who carried her emotions with quiet strength. These later years revealed a truth often overlooked. Lynda Carter's legacy is not defined by a single role. It is defined by the way she lived, steadily, creatively, compassionately. Her story continued through voice work, television, film, music, philanthropy, and the resilience that came from surviving both triumph and loss. And as she entered the next phase of her life, one question lingered softly. How does an icon continue to evolve when the world already believes they know her story? As the decades unfolded, Lynda Carter's public image remained steady, but the emotional landscape beneath it deepened in ways that revealed her true character. She had lived through extraordinary chapters: childhood shaped by culture and music, global fame through Wonder Woman, reinvention as a singer and actress, motherhood, advocacy, and profound loss. These experiences shaped the woman behind the icon, a woman who learned that real strength is rarely loud. It is formed quietly, in the minutes between triumph and heartbreak. Lynda often spoke about the personal meaning behind her work, offering reflections that carried honesty and emotional clarity. She acknowledged that fame had never been a shield. It was simply a part of her story, not the whole of it. Over the years, she shared her thoughts on aging, self-acceptance, and identity, with a candor that resonated deeply with those who grew up watching her. She understood that the world viewed her as a symbol of empowerment, but she also wanted people to see the human being who lived beneath that symbol. She carried the legacy of Wonder Woman, but she no longer felt defined by it. Instead, she used it as a platform to speak about resilience, empathy, and the importance of embracing one's imperfections. Motherhood remained one of the most grounding forces in her life. She raised her 2 children with a sense of balance that often eludes those who live in the public eye. Being their mother gave her a purpose that was steady and deeply personal. She protected their privacy, allowing them to grow without the weight of her fame. In interviews, she spoke about the gratitude she felt for the ordinary moments: breakfast together, conversations around the house, and simple routines that made her feel whole. These memories anchored her, reminding her of what mattered most beyond her career. Her philanthropic work also became a significant part of her identity. She supported causes focused on empowerment, health, and community, using her platform to advocate for organizations she believed in. She understood that visibility carried responsibility, and she approached that responsibility with sincerity. She gave her time, her voice, and her presence to causes that served women, families, and individuals facing hardship. Her advocacy was not performative. It grew from lived experience. Her own journey through recovery gave her a profound understanding of vulnerability, and she carried that empathy into every space she entered. As she continued to reflect on her life, she often spoke about the emotional truth behind her connection to Wonder Woman. She did not see the character as a symbol of physical strength alone. She saw her as a representation of compassion and moral courage, qualities Lynda valued deeply. In later interviews, she shared that playing Wonder Woman taught her how to view strength as something internal, something defined by perseverance and kindness. It shaped her understanding of herself long after the show ended. The loss of her husband, Robert Altman, in 2021 marked one of the most difficult chapters of her life. Her tributes to him revealed a depth of love and grief that she expressed with clarity and tenderness. She spoke about their marriage with gratitude, honoring the life they built together. His passing changed the rhythm of her days, but she continued forward with the same quiet determination that had guided her since childhood. Grief for her became another expression of love, a reminder of the life they shared. In recent years, Lynda continued to use her voice through music, through public appearances, and through advocacy. She remained dedicated to creative expression, embracing the freedom that came with decades of experience. She no longer needed to meet expectations. She only needed to be true to herself. Her story at its heart is not about fame. It is about survival, compassion, reinvention, and emotional truth. It is about a woman who learned that strength is found in vulnerability, and legacy is built not from perfection, but from authenticity. And as her journey continued, she carried with her the same quiet power that first captured the world, a reminder that even icons are human, and that humanity is what makes them unforgettable. Lynda Carter's life is a testament to the quiet power of endurance. Her journey began in the warm rhythms of an Arizona childhood, found its spotlight through Wonder Woman, and continued in the intimate spaces of music, motherhood, advocacy, and healing. She became an icon not because she embodied perfection, but because she carried her humanity with honesty. From singing in clubs as a young girl, to stepping into a role that reshaped television history, to rebuilding herself after the cameras dimmed, every chapter revealed a woman learning how to stand tall in her own truth. Her later years, marked by creative reinvention, voice work, philanthropic commitment, and the heartbreaking loss of her husband, showed that strength is not a costume. It is the courage to move forward when life becomes heavy. And through it all, she never stopped sharing her voice, her story, and her compassion with the world. Lynda Carter remains more than the character she once portrayed. She remains a reminder that real heroism is human. For more emotional stories, check out this video.